look like Good morning. The time is 9:08 and I will now call the December 14th, 2023 PlanRVA meeting to order. Ms. Firestone, will you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Mr. Chambers.
Present.
Dr. McGraw.
Here.
Ms. Abbott. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Here.
Mr. Coda. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
I'm here.
Dr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Davy.
Here.
Ms. Fry. Mr. Holland.
Here.
Mr. Engel.
Here.
Mr. Winslow.
He was here, did he leave?
Yeah, he was, I was just talking to him.
He's on the phone. He's still
Okay.
out.
He's here.
All right, thank you. Goochland County, Mr. Botters. Mr. Spoonhour. Hanover County, Vice Chair Davis.
Present.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Waddell.
Here.
Mr. Whitaker. Henrico County, Mr. Baca.
Here.
Mr. Reverend Nelson. Ms. O'Bannon. Here. Mr. Thornton. Ms. Thornton. Newcastle County, Mr. Lockwood. Ms. Pearson. Here. Powhatan County, Mr. Byerly.
Here.
Mr. McClung. Mr. Hall.
Here.
City of Richmond, Mr. Addison. Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Ms. Robertson. Mr. Poole. And Mr. Giovia. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum. So if you noted, first of all, some folks were surprised that we had an agenda. I like the term winter meeting. I think that that was kind of neat. And then you add breakfast, which means that people will show up in big numbers. But I'm fully aware, very cognizant of the fact that everybody in this room has busy schedules. I think that can be said in any room that you stand in at any given time. I think that's kind of the way of the world, that people are busy. But particularly in a room like this, and I look around while Ms. Scott was calling me, and I apologize. I know you're Miss Scott now. I just knew you as Miss Firestone for so long. So,
That's okay.
that I think about different people and different things that happen. So we come together here, but we all have our own little home base, and we have inside that home base, we have, smaller little contingencies called our districts that we work in, and they're important. Then we all come here, and it's just amazing. If I was to just poll the room and say, hey, tell me the top 3 things that you're working on, somebody like Mr. Holland would say, I don't have a top 3, I've got a top 23, right? And it might be a top 33 by the end of the day, depending on what happens or what my constituents need. And so I find that very interesting as we sit here and we look. I think a lot of folks from looking, if you will, from the outside in say, wow, look, a lot of concentration of power. It's a lot of concentration of service. It's a lot of concentration of service. And I said last night at our board meeting, the last one for the year, that I don't see this as a senior subordinate type of relationship, but when you sit on one side of a dais compared to the other side, nobody's better than anyone else, but you have different and more unique perspectives because of context. I told a board member this morning, I was speaking with Ms. Pritchard, I said, we deal in the nuances. Constituents come up and say, hey, I heard this and this and this and this. We deal in the nuances, whether it's land use, whether it's budget, it's all those types of things. And Mike and I have had many conversations on how the public sector can correlate with the private sector, and then sometimes there's no correlation whatsoever, right? I tell this story because Mike's a private business owner, and whatever Mr. Byerly says in his private business gets done, right? Which is very different than public service. And I once told somebody, it's fun to sometimes just make decisions, around your house or in your business just for the purposes of making decisions. They say, well, I never used to do that, but after I got elected, sometimes I just come in and, hey, we're all going to lunch, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of feeding my sense of self-worth. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, Because in the other role, I can't do anything without having at least 3 other people agree with me. And that doesn't always happen. And anytime that Mr. Peterson disagreed with me, I respect it, even though he was wrong. But I would also say this, that organizations like this, you have colleagues, what I consider to have esteemed colleagues. But I believe there's also a familial connection. You end up kind of having an extended family, and I've heard that term for those of us who served in the military or served in other capacities where you travel abroad and you meet people and you meet them for a season. You kind of get the idea that there's an extended family. With the advent of Facebook, you pick up with a friend that you haven't seen in 20 or 30 years, and it's somewhat bizarre that when you pick up, you just kind of pick up where you were. But like no other place, when you're a policymaker, you deal with the birds, and sometimes, again, not separating anybody out from an elected official to an appointed official, but when you're in public service and you're charged with that role, sometimes the only folks that can truly understand that burden of leadership are folks who've been in that position, who've had to make that call. Somebody mentioned last night the first CVTA meeting, and I heard chuckles go through the room, right? Because that wasn't the most comfortable meeting.
Only 5 hours.
It was only 5 hours. And Chairman Thornton was first CVTA chair, but it got worked out. It got worked out. Nobody was leaving the room until it got worked out. Those are the nuances. If you were just to tune in and watch that, you'd be like, wonder what's going on here. There were so many things that had to be done. And look at the good work that CVTA does. But I think sometimes only your family can kind of understand what takes place, right? What takes place. And you end up having this loyalty and this affection for your family members, even though I may not know the exact thing that's going on in Charles City. I may have a general understanding of what Mr. Atkins might be laboring with down there because I've had a similarity. So with that, I don't think that there's anybody in this room that doesn't recognize we've gone through a number of things. I was looking at the roles at PlanRVA. We've had sitting members of our commission who are no longer with us and passed away during their time of service. Henrico, when Mr. Glover passed away, I mean, he was literally in service at the time. He was an active member of the board. But I always felt like I had a special connection to Miss Page. We've known each other for quite some time. And the things that we worked on together, or the things that we interacted over, I always found at some point they were always refreshing and they were always comical. Her approach to things were comical, and I'll recount a couple of brief stories, but I remember she recounted a story to me one time where she had to go to a meeting and it was dealing with transportation, but it wasn't necessarily 64. And Carlos Brown called and said, Miss Page, we're gonna have this meeting and these are the things that we're gonna have to talk about. He said, I'm gonna respectfully ask, is there any way that 64 can be left out of the conversation for this meeting? It's just not gonna be an agenda topic. It's not that it's not important, but is there any way we can just not have the discussion on 64 during this meeting? And she said, Carlos, if there's no need to talk about 64, then it won't come up in the meeting. So, Carlos hadn't gotten fixed what Miss Page wanted to get fixed. Anybody want to guess what came up during the meeting? But I said this the other day at the staff Christmas and holiday party. And I think this really epitomizes public service, particularly as it relates to the local level. There will be millions upon millions of people who will go down 64 and enjoy the safety aspects of it, the travel ease of 64, not even recognizing the impact of what that transportation need was and how it will be satisfied. But many of those people will never know the impact of one supervisor in a small county like New Kent had. And I'm here to tell you, and I firmly believe this, and I told Ms. Page this before she passed, that would not have happened if it wasn't for Patricia Page. It just simply wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. And Patricia would have never said that. She would have just said, look, I expected it to happen. This is what we're going for. But she advocated, she fought, she made it happen. She was a fierce and loyal supporter of her community. She always batted for the home team first, but when she came to a place like this, she understood what it meant to help other people get things done that they needed to get done, And I think that's just simply defined as leadership. When I think of Patricia, I think of lead always. No matter the situation, she always looked at lead always. Don't be a stumbling block. You can interject and you can be a resistor if you need to, if something's not going the way that it needs to go. But just don't be a stumbling block for stumbling block purposes. Never saw Patricia Page engage in political gamesmanship. I think she probably was rather savvy and strategic on the political side, because I saw some of the things that she got done. But I never saw her engage in that for the purposes of political gamesmanship. That didn't interest her. And for those of y'all who have ever had been on the other side of an issue or discussion with Ms. Page, you know you never had a problem understanding where she stood. But folks like Patricia, I'm proud to have served with. I know we all are. I'm proud to say that I've worked with her on projects. I do think that that's important because she believed in deliverables, as we all do. I'm proud to say that we worked on initiatives and sometimes stopped initiatives that we didn't think were good for either our localities or the region as a whole. But I'm glad to have been subjected to her leadership and had that close connection with her working on projects. But I guess above overall, when it all comes to an end, and for Ms. Page, that did happen sooner than any of us would have liked, I'm proud to call Patricia Page a friend. And her impact is more than a road, and it's more than a committee meeting. It's an impact in many people's lives, and I consider myself one of those people. So I'd ask if we could all stand and have a moment of silence, memory and reflection of Ms. Page. Thank you all. Well, this isn't on the agenda. Did anybody care to share, only if you care to, any interactions with Ms. Page, anything in memory of Ms. Page?
She just said, she served on the finance committee, and so we got to watch her even at our former location and how fiscal conservative she was. She would question expenditures, and I can still remember some of her comments during some of our meetings. Issues related to the move, issues related to just spending, period. And another thing I'll share is I recall in our last vote in this room with her, the vote wasn't unanimous because it was related to 64, as you can imagine. And I'm very focused on, I believe interstates are interstates, and the federal government should own up to its responsibility for Interstate 64. But out of respect for her, I voted for that particular issue right in this room. And because, the federal government will put its responsibilities on them. The state does likewise. And that's why we have the CDTA to supplement what the state is not or has not done. But at that one vote, I recall, and I was really conflicted because I could vote my conscience. Not so much, but our respect for what she had done and what she believed, I shifted my belief from the federal level responsibility to our level, local level, in lieu of her, for her. So I do remember that vote, and I'm conflicted because, again, I have a hard time not voting what I don't believe in with regard to financial responsibility and physical discipline in the sense of who should be paying for what, when, where.
She could marshal a team.
No
question.
So I'll share that one story about her in this room.
Canova?
Well, I will share that there was a lot more to Patricia Page than just the political world. She was a very special lady in a lot of ways. I think I shared once before that her first day on the TPO, she just by chance happened to sit down next to me. wanted to have make a statement, probably about I-64. But I don't really recall, but she did lean over and she said, you know, could we bring this up? Like she was asking, and I'm saying, said, no, you go ahead and bring it up. Everybody wants to hear what you have to say. She did, and she never stopped bringing things up again. But it was shortly after that, we had the transportation forum at the Harley-Davidson Center in Hanover County. And they had the big conference room there. And who shows up in leathers on her Harley? Patricia Page. A number of people in this room were there for her celebration of life this past weekend. And oftentimes when I go to a celebration of life, I find the people I think I know, I find out there's much more to them than I ever knew. And I think we all found that this past Saturday at that celebration. And with that though, I'm also would like to do a business side of things today. I would like to move that PlanRVA offer its full and support for New Kent County in having some part of the I-64 widening project named for Patricia Page.
Yeah. That is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well, passed unanimously. Ms. Schickel, if you'll draft a letter of support, and we will have that signed.
Mr. Chair?
I've got one back here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I met Patricia probably 10 years ago with Relay for Life, and she was a force to be reckoned with there. And I knew she was going to be wonderful on the board. And I wanted to thank everybody that came out to her service because it was amazing. I've never been to anything like that before in my life, and it was absolutely a beautiful service. And I just wanted to also say that the Board of Supervisors for New Kent has formally drafted a resolution, and it was voted on Monday night for our stretch of 64 to be named after, in memory of Patricia Ann Page. So that will go as well as your letter too. So hopefully we can band together and get that done.
Yes, sir.
I too was at the service this past weekend. It was phenomenal. Just as a point, the CVTA has already voted to draft a letter in support, and we've already spoken with VDOT, and they are aware of all these things coming forward. I think they're on board with it. So every letter that we get, even if it's from even all of the other jurisdictions around, one of the things I was going to talk to my colleagues about, we didn't get a chance to do it last night, is drafting a letter of support for that from Chesterfield County. And I think as a region, if the other jurisdictions would consider doing that as well, I think it's a tremendous message, not just from the regional bodies, but from each individual leadership group in each jurisdiction. It's going to be kind of hard for them to say no.
And if they do, then you just do what she did until they say yes.
That's great. Well, I think that's a fine way to end that portion of the agenda. And I know we're all grateful that we had an opportunity to serve with Patricia. So, at the end of the year, people become very reflective and nostalgic. But I do think it's important from a business standpoint to do a year in review. It's always important to start looking at the future year, but when you can look back and look at accomplishments and areas where, you made movement, I think that's extremely important. So we're going to briefly go over the year in review. I'll hit it topically, and then if you'd like to go in and do the details. But the advancing regional planning and support for our local members was huge, and I was surprised at how quick Martha and her staff were able to get that off of the ground. I wish Mr. Spoonhauer was here. He had talked a lot about that. I was just, and kudos to Martha and the team here, but that has been a huge success and a deliverable from this building out to the region. We did complete the market value analysis, critical infrastructure assessment, climate pollution reduction planning grant, though we have pending support for affordable housing policies. And Martha will talk a little bit about that. We initiated new partnerships to deliver programs to our community through our piloted business recovery workshops and a partnership with PlanRVA. And that's kind of an exciting story that Martha will go over as well. Our staff, it's interesting because as things move and develop and they shake out, our staff, there was a lot of movement within our staff. We had to hire new folks. We had some people who moved into different positions. I don't think the CVTA could have picked a better executive director than the person that they have in Chet Parsons. And so I'm really glad to hear. And to tell you, that they're not just words. I told Martha when we first did our MOU, I said, look, if CVTA ends up at PlanRVA, they're going to be, I said, put them in the back. I want some daylight between PlanRVA and CVTA because these guys will come in here. I said, this is what's going to happen, Had a hard time getting Kevin's rent from him when he was a chair, but we finally got that worked out. But no, it's been a great relationship between CVTA and PlanRVA, and having Chet as the executive director leading that organization and being housed here in PlanRVA just further bolsters the cooperation within the region. You don't have to send emails and make phone calls and schedule meetings. You can, I don't even, do y'all walk across the hall or you just holler across the hall? That works. So congratulations there. That's one of those things where, sometimes you're conflicted. You want somebody, to have a great opportunity and you say, man, but I'm going to lose somebody. And, there was no question when I watched the meeting and heard Chet was going to be as executive director. I commend the leadership at CVTA for that. And so, Chet, we look forward to continuing to work. You could have sat at a breakfast table. I didn't want to create that much separation. But our staff has worked on a lot of things to provide the local technical assistance, and we did launch the recruitment for the new planning staff and grant specialists. So we're really looking forward to that in 2024. I mentioned a few things about CVTA. We're going to talk about our deepening commitment to public outreach. The new office space, we had 19 special meeting events for outside groups here. I remember Martha and I flew in. Was that the inner city visit? So anyway, we get up at far earlier than we needed to because that's what Martha likes to do, and being places very, very early. So I sat in the lobby for, 3 or 4 hours. It was actually only 30 minutes, but nonetheless, we fly back here. We both, I don't even know if you went home or not. I went home, changed real quick, came back, and we had a Wilder School event here that night. I mean, this place was just well. So through the summer, this was an extremely busy summer. This place was just filled with folks, and it was bustling. And I had some folks come up to me at other events and say thanks for hosting and those types of things. And so that was just really fun to see that this space was being used for that. And I don't think it can go without mentioning. I mean, one of the best events that we had was PlanRVA Day. I don't know how many folks. Was that actually on June 1st? Was that what it was? I think it was June 1st.
Yeah.
So it started in the morning, and we had a series of events, and then at night it was gonna culminate in having a social downstairs in one of the breweries. And so I saw a couple of people that were there earlier in the day, and I just assumed that they had gone about their business and came back for the social. But I had a lady come up to me, and I don't believe she was the only one, who planned on coming just to the morning session. Secretary was here. I think it was me, Kevin. Who else was on that panel? Oh, Chris, Mr. Winslow. And we did the panel. A lot of folks came for that. I thought the room was probably going to empty and ebb and flow throughout the day. The room stayed packed the whole day. This one lady came up and told me, Joe, who was it?
John Lumpkin.
Lumpkin.
John Lumpkin, yep.
Hey, look, so if you're going through Goochland, and you're over 10, you know what I mean? And you get pulled, it might help say, hey, look, I'm good friends with John Lumpkin. We served down in PlanRVA. Might get him to knock you down to under 10, So congratulations to John. But briefly, I just thought, we'll just see the room ebb and flow throughout the day. And that that didn't happen. I mean, people just stayed and stayed and stayed, and some folks came and like cleared their schedule for the rest of the day to be at PlanRVA Day all day, and then stayed for the social. So again, I give Martha and her team a lot of credit for that. But would you be willing to go ahead and handle the in-depth dive to the 2023 year in review? Sure. Thank you.
I think most of you know about these things, so I'll just go back and kind of hit some highlights. I tried to put together a list of, we do an annual report at the end of the fiscal year, but it did just feel like this year in particular, thinking about all of the things that we'd accomplished, that our staff team had accomplished. So I'll just go back and hit a couple of the details. We heard yesterday in a call with Virginia Housing that PlanRVA leads the state among the 21 jurisdictions in our expenditures for the housing development grant. So you might recall that about a year and a half ago, we partnered with Partnership for Housing Affordability to deliver $2.7 million awarded from Virginia Housing to nonprofit housing developers across the region. We were able to select projects in all 9 of our jurisdictions, and we're exceeding our target of 30 units by 275. So it's just really exciting to think about how this organization, in partnership with PHA, could leverage these dollars to be able to get low-income housing tax credit projects in the region, which obviously added a lot to those numbers, into the development stage. Many of them had suffered what you know to be the cost overruns with price increases and rate changes and things like that. And so this grant award really pushed those projects over the finish line, and we were able to see an acceleration of Habitat for Humanity projects in the smaller jurisdictions. Many of our Habitat affiliates can really only undertake maybe 1 to 2 units every couple of years, and this enabled us to take on, in some cases in Hanover and King William, and I know in Powhatan, maybe 4 or 5 houses in a compressed timeline. So it's just really exciting to be able to see. We're advocating hard to make sure that Virginia Housing renews that grant, so I will keep you posted, but we're going to finish the project a year ahead of schedule and far exceeding our target of units expected. I wanted to touch on the business recovery program because I think that that's another really exciting one. For a long time, the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia has been talking about how to get into the business community and really to help our smallest businesses withstand disasters, whether it's a flooding event that, boots an organization or a company out of their space, or it's some other type of tornado that comes through the middle of the county or that kind of a thing. How can we make sure that businesses are ready to be able to deal with whatever emergency challenges come their way? So we were able to partner with PlanRVA to participate in one of their chamber mix events, hosted out in Powhatan, actually, at the Independence Golf Center, to be able to put together a program for the business attendees to work through an exercise to think about what business recovery might look like and what the steps would be that they need to do to be ready for an emergency. We piloted it with that event. The chamber was so pleased with the way that the program was received that they've asked us to come back and deliver that at some of their other mix events throughout the region. And we're going to be working in the coming year to work with the local community business councils and other organizations to be able to deliver that content. The Community Foundation has also asked us to help them build a similar curriculum geared toward nonprofits. So we're really excited about that. And all of that work is funded through the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Let me see, what other things can I highlight here? On the special events, I just wanted to call attention to that. One of the things that we talked about a lot and experienced ourselves when we were navigating the post-pandemic, mid-move kind of time is that there really aren't a lot of spaces like this in the region that are available for free, that have the technological resources and have the size that we can have this type of a group. And so it's been really wonderful that really with no advertisement or promotion, we've had that many requests to host events. So examples of some of those were Richmond Region Tourism hosted their monthly board meeting here. We've had LMR have their board retreat here. As Mr. Davis mentioned, the VCU Plan-Off competition was hosted here, which was a really wonderful way to bring a lot of people into the space. Trying to think, though, the Next City Vanguard Conference hosted one of their sessions here, which was an internationally attended conference of planners and professionals in the community development space. So it's just been really great. And when Lee counted up all of the events that we've hosted, 19 over the last year. And that's in addition to all of the regular things that this organization would be hosting in this room, regardless of our location. So we were really pleased to be able to offer this as a resource to the community and are looking at ways that we can continue to make the space available to our community organizations and partners. I think with that, I'll hand the program back over to Mr. Davis. Or if there are questions.
Yeah, any questions? So before we get into the next part, does anybody have any business that they'd like to bring up, anything they'd like to look at, discuss, anything like that? Okay. I know we have some new faces here. Can you raise your hand if you're kind of new here, maybe it's first time you've been here? Uh-oh, I just put Mr. Patterson on the spot. You're the only. All right, there we go. All right. So I was joking. I made this comment when we did our event the other night over in Henrico, and Mr. Thornton, Mr. O'Bannon, thank y'all. That facility was phenomenal. So thank y'all for hosting us there. That was just great. But I talked about, when you get into elected office, there's no rookie status. There's no no spin up. I think I used to, there's no second string. There's no reserves. Your first string, you this, that, and the other. Mr. Atkins turned around and said, "Yeah." He said, as soon as he gets Mr. Patterson on the insurance, that's going to become his driver. So don't buy into all that. Hey, if you're working for Mr. Atkins, you rookie, man. It's just the way it is. Anyway, welcome. We appreciate that. I do have a feeling you might end up being Mr. Atkins' driver at some point. But if you can't, call me. I'll pick him up. All right. But anyway, welcome. You want to give us a brief background, a little introduction about yourself? I mean, there's one point I'd really like to make sure that you hit. But other than that, we'll let you give us a brief bio and anything you'd like to say.
Oh, yeah. So, how you guys doing? My name is Ryan Patterson. 15 years in the Marine Corps. After I got out.
I'm sorry, was our sound system on?
15 years in the United States Marine Corps.
Is that by the November 11th?
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. After I got out the Marine Corps, I ended up in martial arts. I opened up a chain of martial arts schools that provided before and after care in the Fort Washington, Prince George's County area in Maryland. From there, I moved to Charles City in 2016, and that's when I began this quest for public service. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Patterson. It's been great to see you jump right in and see you in so many things, and that's just phenomenal. And you've got a phenomenal mentor there as well.
Yes,
so, with that, I know we have some folks here that we have some special recognitions. I believe they said they were in alphabetical order, but I'm going to ask Mr. Byerly if he'll come up here. Mike, come on up. So I won't belabor any points. Man, your time here and your leadership and your interaction really was impactful. And you don't belabor points. You get straight to the point. You say, this is what I think we need to do. And you always came with a plan. And if somebody brought up something that maybe looked like it could be better, you'd look at it. And if it was better, you'd immediately say, yeah, that's a better plan. I think it's a true sign of a leader. And it was so refreshing to serve with you. I mean, it really was. And there were just so many things that I think that we got done. Of course, the list can be long, and a lot of it, again, nobody will ever know, but it was really, I just say, it was so refreshing to serve with you. There was never a time where politics ever got involved. There was no who shot John. You were so issue-based, and you were just ready to make decisions with the information you had available at the time. And I just admired that leadership quality about you, and it was so fun serving with you. And when I say fun, it really was. So thank you for your time here in the region in Powhatan. I know you'll be sorely missed, but I'm sure you've probably got a couple of things on your agenda, maybe a golf game or two. But would you like to say anything before we do a little photo shoot here with Sid?
Well, thank you for your kind words. They mean a lot to me. And I appreciate your leadership and your guidance and your mentorship with me. And as you say, there's many things that most don't know, but you have these conversations and you work towards the betterment of this whole region. And I think that it's been a complete pleasure to work with everyone here. I admire you guys. It's a pretty difficult job that when you serve the public that you do. And there's only those people that do that understand both sides of it. And that's the thing that, you know, to me, I was reading a poem from a teacher of mine who sent it to me a couple of days ago about a puppy. Went home and told us he was at a meeting and he had a puppy and he was filled with emotion, as most humans are. But the puppy didn't react to all the things that had happened when he explained the conversation to him in the essence of a poem. And I have the poem and I could read it to you, but I won't do that. But it's just quite interesting how we let our emotions dictate the path we're going to go. And the reality of it is, when you're serving the public, remove the emotions and look at what's going to happen for the whole group of this region. I've been just in awe of Martha and her job, and Sean and Kevin with CVTA, and Mr. Thornton to have brought CVTA out from an infancy to a completely developed organization that this region benefits from substantially. And there's many others. I mean, you know, we could all sit here and go through the names of everything that folks have done. But for me, thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much.
Hey, just check the paparazzi. Miss O'Bannon. So I'll briefly recount it because I think this, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Pat and the things that she's done over the years. She's been in public service for a long time, and even before she was elected, she was serving her community. Everybody knows Doc. It's a family affair, and Doc served this Commonwealth, and of course, he's served many, many, many patients. So it's kind of neat when you see that fiber run through a family. But I remember my first PlanRVA meeting. I'm sorry, it was my second PlanRVA meeting. And for those from Goochland, you can tell Manny Tavares that I recounted this. But Manny wanted to have a study done. Huh?
Manny Alvarez.
Alvarez. Did I say Tavares? I meant Alvarez. Manny Alvarez. So Manny wants to have a study done. It's going to be about $250,000, so on and so forth, about a road going through. Was it Ridgefield Park? I am going to tell this story. So Manny comes and he says, look, I'm going to do it. And I said, Manny, you know, all of us kind of got together and said, Manny, if Enrico says no, I hear you, I want to support you, your friend, but I don't know, so anyway, he's like, well, let's discuss it at the next meeting. So next meeting, Miss O'Bannon shows up, Mr. Thornton was there, and about 9 staff members from Henrico showed up with binders. And Manny's over there and we're like, Manny. So we kind of recessed a little bit to talk. I remember we all got around Manny like, Manny, we're out. Pat's not doing it. It's in her district, not gonna have it. And I remember Manny came back to me, I never recounted this to you, about a year later. He's like, you know, it was the right thing to do, but you came with information. You knew what was best for your district. You knew what was best for the region, and you presented strong information, strong points to that, and you got done what needed to be done, and you did it in a professional manner, and I've always respected that. So, Pat, thank you for your service. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, particularly that project. Now you're moving away.
Okay.
I'm really shy, you know.
Yeah, when I think Pat O'Bannon, I think shy. That's the first one.
That was not what I wanted. It was what the people wanted in that
Right.
area. So that's the first thing to always remember. They're your boss. Your real boss is, you know, the people you represent. And many times I've shifted one way or the other because they told me in many ways that's what they wanted. But no, I don't have much to say except that thank you very much. But I did say one thing that I think is appropriate. I majored in English literature in college, and I always loved Tennyson. And he was the one that, it was from his poem Ulysses, which is, of course, in Greek, it's Odysseus. But I quote that because the manager's Greek, the Henrico County manager is Greek roots. But I am a part of all that I have met. And Tricia left things that she wanted done, and so a part of her stays here and is there. Other people who've come and gone have left a piece of them too, and that's what we're here for, is to guide and move things the way our constituents want, or the people that tell us what we want to do. But when you're finished, you see all those pieces of the things that you left, that you were a part of. And I think you can all say now that we were a part of the 64 because of her, which is why we're so pleased and proud to name the road after her. So, but thank you very much, and I'll accept this with that in mind. Thank you.
I think we got a picture here.
Okay.
Well, they named it after park after me.
And they named the park after you? We'll make note of that. Please make sure that's entered in the minutes. Mr. Peterson, my good friend Canova Peterson.
Don't tell everybody.
So the statute of limitations is still in place, so I won't. It's interesting, Canova, and I said this last night, has a legacy of service as well, serving our nation, not only here in the home front, but in Vietnam and leading men into battle, and coming back stateside and leading women and men back in the garrison, and then continuing that service in elected office. I think there's probably a few differences between being a lieutenant in the Army and maybe serving on the Board of Supervisors. I would imagine that.
The caissons keep rolling on.
I've always appreciated Canova. Canova has always expressed to me how much he loves Marine Corps stories, because he would always say, "Oh, great, here's another Marine Corps story." So I took him at his word. But when I think about somebody who looks at issues, looks whether it's a budget, whether it's a policy matter, and digs deep, does their homework, knows what's going on, and can go in, and Mr. Spoonhour said it last night. He traveled to the board meeting, Mr. Peterson chaired last board meeting of the year in Hanover, and said, Canova just knows what's going on. I mean, he just knows that you do your homework, and when you come to your convictions, they're well supported. And then I've just got the utmost respect for you. I've enjoyed serving with you. You and I came on the Hanover County Board at the same time. And then we kind of came over to PlanRVA, kind of melded a few things. But it's been a pleasure serving with you in both capacities. And I've never seen a difference in our boardroom or in this boardroom. The Canova that you see is a Canova that you get, and that consistency means a lot, particularly sometimes in the world that we live in, that politics can interject itself. So I have an immense and tremendous amount of respect for you in that regard. And then lastly, it's not quite as sensational, but your work on budgets and your ability to dive through and work on a budget and be a resource for those who need to know about the budgeting process and what's going on in any organization you've been involved with is just tremendous, because budgets are so important in the public sector. And I just want to say, admiration when it comes to that very important part of setting public policy. So the floor is yours.
I don't know what to say. Thank you very much. Sean did not also tell you that last night he also asked about me being bullheaded. But the fact of the matter is, he's correct. I can be. But Sean and I, most of the time, have agreed on things. The times he was wrong, but that's. But the fact of the matter is, that's not what this is about here today. I just am so honored to have been a part of the last 12 years, to have been a part of PlanRVA, to have been a part of being starting CVTA with Frank Thornton's leadership. And the 12 years ago, when we first came on board with PlanRVA, TPO, and the region, there was a lot of infighting going on. And if there's one thing I am happier about over the last 12 years, is how much closer we have all come together and started working together regionally. Because 12 years ago, it wasn't anywhere like what it is today. And I am so proud to be part of the RVA region, not just Hanover County. Hanover County is still the best county. But other than that, really, we work together so well, and I'm so happy that you've allowed me to be part of this operation. Thank you.
I think so.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your good part.
Mr. Thornton. Frank, I sat beside you at my very first TPO meeting 12 years ago. So this is kind of special. If you would have ever asked me, would I be handing Frank Thornton a plaque, I would have said no. And I certainly would never have expected that it would be because of an end of service award opportunity. But you've been a mentor. I think your leadership was without question. You're certainly above reproach. But your ability to be collegial and inspire collegiality in other people is noteworthy. I mean, I know that I have seen, without naming names, I have been witness to people outside of rooms that didn't always agree and had really planned on coming into the room and doing battle. And you had made a few comments before the battle essentially was to ensue. And those folks said, I'm not gonna behave that way. I'm gonna focus on policy. You never took credit for it, but I saw it happen on two occasions particularly. And then what went forward was very good and substantial policy for the region. And I was like, wow, man, if there were more folks like Frank Thornton, a lot more good would get done. I really was gonna try to learn a little bit of French for this. It did not work. I think on Phil Lamone's, I think the girl eats, I know merci, and it's with some sadness, I guess, I'd have to say au revoir. Right? But I consider it a privilege to have served with you. You're certainly a stalwart in this region and throughout the Commonwealth. Your service, you enjoy certainly a good reputation. But you've racked up a lot of wins on policy for your people and for the region and for the state, and that should not go without mentioning. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to give credit to Martha, you and your team who played in the background, including Chet in the back and others who have assisted us in what we've tried to do. And I'm so glad to hear my colleague from Hanover, all the other Hanover, partner from Hanover mentioned about how a certain number of years ago, we weren't where we are today. And I'm just pleased to have been in the company of colleagues like each of you, because you've helped me to grow and you've helped the region to grow. And all I did was something simple. We all learned about it in the past. That is, the best team that you have is a team that sticks together. So I was a little reluctant to become leadership with the CVTA, but I was kind of pushed a little bit. But, I had my toolkit. And in my toolkit was because the letter C, a lot of you heard that a lot, that is collegiality. And I think we made it work. And all because of each of you. And so I wish each of you a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And my last wish is this. You don't perhaps, I think I heard someone mention it earlier, the public has no idea about this group. So my wish is for you to continue on doing what you're doing now. It's critically important. And the region will grow even more. So in conclusion, think about this. Each of you is a sophisticated person. People don't want to go to a region that is dysfunctional, but they will be prone to come to a region that is cohesive, together, and progressive. And that's what we have here. And each of you had a part to play in that, including some of us who'll be stepping down. So here again, it was my honor to serve with you, and thank you. Je vous remercie.
All right, we're good. Hope y'all have a great day. My good friend Chris Winslow. Chris is a person that was so close to getting me to not tell lawyer jokes. I mean, I would, because I love a lawyer joke. And
We actually take him as a point of personal pride.
well, yeah, what do they say? 90% of the lawyers give the other 10% a bad name. Chris. First of all, I'll tell you would not be enjoying breakfast in this room and in this space if it wasn't for Chris Winslow. He was on a travel team with a number of other folks, but from place to place to place to place to place, a little inside. But this place smelled the best, I think. Is that right?
That was a big deal for me, yeah.
Chris went to this one place. Martha, she's like, Mr. Winslow doesn't like this place. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's good. Chris was the chair. We just kind of feed. I'm like, was it parking? Was it? She's like, he likes smell. He likes smell. I'm like, okay. So I'd heard this, and another board member was like, I don't know, the space not great. But on top of it, Chris said, doesn't smell good, So I come into a meeting one day, I said, Chris, hey, how things going? It's like, everything's good. He's like, man, this is one place. It's just got a terrible smell. I'm like, I got it. So I don't know whether it was mold. I don't know what it was, but I'm like, yeah, right. So Chris worked really hard on this. And I've said this before, I came in and did ribbon cuttings and all these types of things. And I mean, Chris ran the ball all the way down the field and then kind of handed off to me on the 1 yard line, and then we opened up this space. But this was a tremendous undertaking. A lot of the things that we are doing now that are just standard practice are because of initiatives that Chris put in place and led staff and worked in a cohesive manner with other folks to set some substantial foundational policies for things that we just do now that are standard practice. I always thought it was interesting how Chris would work with new executive committee members and previous executive committee members. I just always saw you kind of standing right there in the middle doing this and handling things that came down from previous leaders and things that were coming your way from incoming leaders. And I always admired that. But you're a stand-up guy. Probably one of the most sincere and genuine people that I've ever met in public service. Just sincere and genuine. You take issues to heart. You talk about them. You shared with me the process that you go through to get to your decisions. And I just, sometimes folks just don't have time to share that. Yet Chris made time to share. And then the transition from him being the chair to me coming in was really interesting because there were a lot of phone calls, and I said, Chris, is there anything that we need to make sure that we just definitely don't drop? And he's like, yeah, we got this, that, and the other. And sometimes folks just don't have time to do that. They just don't. And then we were looking at some continuity plans, some different things with the TPO. I was out of town, one phone call. Chris said, let me call you back. I want to say it was less than 5 minutes. He said, yeah, I'll chair the TPO. I know we need that for the rest of the year and so on and so forth. So you're never afraid to step up and really didn't put your own personal agenda in front of serving. And so I've just always had a great admiration and respect for you. And I'm proud to say that I've had an opportunity to serve with you. And when I'm in Chesterfield, I tell folks that all the time. I know Chris Winslow, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sean. It's been an honor serving with you. It's been an honor serving with you, Martha, and all of our staff. We have done a tremendous job together, not to reiterate everything that's been said, because there's been a lot of good comments, but I do think, for the 8 years that I've been, not necessarily in PlanRV, certainly at TPO most of the time, it felt like Oliver Twist, please, sir, could I have some more from whoever the funding authority was, be that the General Assembly or be that our own locality structures or whatever it is, where there's always more to do. But I think we have done well, and I think we have challenged each other to do better. And I think we always have these friendly intramural competitions with our localities, but really what we've done is we've challenged each other to be better. And look, I'm 44 years old, and as I said last night, when God closes one door, he opens another one. And I just see big things, accepting Frank Thornton's challenge. I see big things for this region if we all continue to do what we've already done. And in so many ways, and you can make a list of the top 10 problems we have as a region, and let's go to battle. Let's go figure it out, because that's what this is all about. And serving the public and serving the citizens. And those of you, like I said, who know me, you know how much I love public policy and have studied it over so many years and have enjoyed it, and it's been an honor to be a part of this. And yes, this building smells like it should smell, which is, it shouldn't smell like anything. It should smell clean. And so we're glad to be here. We're glad to help. I think Richmond, redevelop this area in a way that's just lifting so many boats up, and it's exciting to watch down here. There's equipment going on in the background. These guys are cleaning it up and getting ready to do something else over there. So it's exciting, and it's been a blessing to really be a part of this group. Y'all know I'm an attorney. We a title insurance company. I'm your friend. Whatever you need, if I can ever help you out, whatever it is, please let me know. And I just want to say we will always miss Patricia Page. I just had to say that. She just had a special place in my heart. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
All right, one more. Oh. Now walk away. We both moved.
No, we've had.
Perfect. Thanks.
Well, I'll ask one more time if anybody has any other comments, whether it's business, whether it's a personal reflection, whether it's anything that you want to say. The floor is open. I don't know what they used to call that during the talent show, but it's the open mic time. Let's start with business. Any business? Yes, sir.
I know it's not really been a role of PlanRVA, but I'm sure all of your jurisdictions have seen the JLARC study on education. And all of us know that that's an issue for our jurisdictions. We've all been fighting this. Please, sir, may I have some more? As individual jurisdictions, not sometimes with our school boards, sometimes our school board's fighting us while we're trying to fight to get some more. This is the strongest place to advocate together as a region. So I'm just asking everybody here to consider how we can work together to work with the state to fund the JLARC study. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I want to join in that too, because I think that's so important. As I said earlier, at different levels of government, they push it on us. This mandate, that mandate. And we were shocked. I mean, I wasn't shocked, but it was a shock that they had underfunded public education in Virginia so much. Which means we board of supervisors, the city council had to increase funding because you have to fund education. That's a critical imperative for prosperity, for civics, and for just living. And there's another thing I've been asked to look at, and I want to share it with you as I'm working through it now as to what we do. And that is literacy, ability to read. There's a Read Center here, I think, in Richmond. They want to open in Chesterfield as well. We have people, and those are ones we cannot be have, who are reading at the 3rd grade level. Think about that. It's hard to think about that. We have to work. I know we talked about, I've been in here long enough to know the issues. We talk about housing, and we talked about Bright Beginnings many years ago, early childhood education, that's a critical initiative. But the ability to read is fundamental. If you don't read, what else are you not able to do? And I think that's something I want to look at. I hope that we will look at helping those who were left behind education in this region, which means education, our school system, again, back to funding. Funding that critical important part, I think, is a part of all our work. Because if they aren't able to read, then the critical work of workforce, which I serve on, and we serve on the workforce consortium, all 9 jurisdictions, then how are they going to be employed? Where are they going to be employed? They cannot read. If they cannot read the signs on the street. So I just want to impart that as an opportunity for us, if you so desire. I see it as critically important. Thank you.
Thank you. Two very, very valid points. Absolutely, no question. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I guess I have to stand up since you two did. I totally think this board, while it's PlanRVA and TPO and things about planning and planning for roads, et cetera, it's for people to get to work.
Yeah.
To get to school, to learn skills, no matter what jurisdiction they're in. We are a big part of education, especially in equity and access.
Yeah.
By bus, by bike, by foot, and by car. From that order on purpose. But to me, that's what this body is doing. And so we don't have goals for improving education and investing in our communities and addressing literacy and other pieces that we're not doing our job, because the whole purpose why we need infrastructure is usually we get complaints about people not being able to get to work on time or other delays in that capacity. We want to make sure that's everyone's ability to do easily. And so for me, we are that body. And if we don't see that we do impact that directly and need that to be stronger as an investment in the region, then it's kind of just, we're just building roads. And I think we're way more than that from the speakers that talked. I did math, by the way. It's almost 80 years of elected service is parting this board right now. And that's knowledge, it's irreplaceable. And I applaud you for that, because we are here at this conversation point talking about these issues because of what you've helped shepherd us to this opportunity. So I think this board does need to tackle things around exactly that topic, because it is what we do. Whether or not we think directly, the outcome of what we do together is the impact of making that easier to access education. So let's make it stronger. I think that's what we should be doing.
Thanks, Andres. Yeah, sure. Good point. Anyone else? Anything further? All right, any personal comments? Well, I'll just end with this. I appreciate everybody who's helped me with things that we've had to work on from the leadership standpoint, and the executive committee, those who've answered their phones, those who've said, these are the initiatives I'd like to bring forward to the full commission. Here's what I'd like to see happen, communicating back and forth. Dr. Newmill, Dr. McGraw, just on the executive committee, it's just hugely important that leadership role for this organization to get things to the full commission, and using your relationships with other commissioners to come back and say, hey, I was told this, I was told that, and this is what we need to do. So I just want to thank y'all for that, Mr. Atkins as well. And Jim, just a personal thank you, Finance Committee. I mean, it's so hugely important. And it's audits and it's budgets and it's all kinds of things, reserve accounts and capital, and all of that. And then, asking if you could stay in that role again. A number of commissioners came and said, we think, if he's willing to, would you ask him, would you reach out and see if Jim be willing to do that again? He immediately said, sure, but you knock that out. So you just served on the finance committee, which is just so hugely important. So I just want to personally thank you, because at the end, if it's important in the government, if it's important, it's in your budget, right?
Right.
And so we have to prioritize sometimes. So with that, thank you all. Wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a wonderful holiday season. The time is
10:13.
10:13. We are adjourned.